I think that many people would agree with me when I say that Halo Combat Evolved was a revolutionary game for its time. It single-handedly made the original Xbox a force to be reckoned with during a time period when Sony and Nintendo were the top dogs. To put that into perspective, that's like if a console was released today that managed to quickly rise in popularity to rival the PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch, all because of one or two unique games that it has. Sounds impossible, right? Well, apparently not for this game. Halo Combat Evolved introduced many players to a video game experience unlike any other. It was a first-person shooter with an expansive, beautiful, and diverse location that you could travel on with many different vehicles, and if you wanted to, you could explore these places with a friend. During the early days of the 6th generation of consoles, this was practically revolutionary. Co-op or multiplayer gameplay in a first-person shooter had already been done before, mind you, but Halo Combat Evolved took many of these concepts from other games like GoldenEye and polished them to a degree that made it accessible to an incredibly large audience. Put simply, Halo was different, and more importantly, Halo was fun. It was fun to be able to play capture the flag with your friends. It was fun to be able to drive around with your buddy in a Warthog while you ran over the small grunts, and it was fun to then be able to pick up the weapon of that dead grunt only to massacre all his friends with it. Halo truly was a generation-defining game, and its inevitable sequels all followed suit, being just as incredible even if they weren't as revolutionary since so many FPS games had started to be created by that time. Eventually, the franchise ended with Halo 3, or so we thought. In November of 2012, almost half a decade after the release of Halo 3, fans across the world were introduced to Halo 4, which was now created by a different company called 343 Industries, or, as it's more commonly known by the fans, Satan. Halo 4 was by no means a bad game, but the story had certainly shown a shift from the kind of storytelling that the previous games had been known for. The new take on the relationship between the main character Master Chief and his AI partner Cortana was actually really well done and brought a level of depth to both characters that we hadn't seen before. In the original games, Master Chief had always been a one-dimensional character, and that was perfectly fine because he wasn't the focus of the story. In fact, one of the things that made Halo Combat Evolved unique was that none of the characters were meant to be super complex. Master Chief was just a super soldier with no emotions that acted as a shell so that the player could imagine themselves in his place. Cortana was simply an AI who gave directions and exposition while also being funny sometimes. And Sergeant Johnson was just a stereotypical drill sergeant.
Damn right I am.
The reason for all this was that Halo wasn't supposed to be about the characters, but instead the world. Halo 4 changed much of that. Even though it had beautiful environments, the gameplay had noticeably changed to be much more objective-oriented, with the players being explicitly told where to go, rather than allowing them to explore the environment and naturally make their way through the story. A lot of the new characters in Halo 4 were also meant to be interesting, but never really caught the player's attention like the Arbiter or Guilty Spark did. As such, Halo 4 felt a little lackluster. Not a bad game by any means, but still a game that wasn't sure what it wanted to be. Was it going to be more like the Call of Duties of the world? The introduction of loadouts, sprinting, and ordnances certainly made it seem so, but it still hadn't made the full transition yet, which made it feel like a conflicted game. That transition wouldn't happen until Halo 5, which was released in 2015, 3 years later. And Halo 5 was interesting, to say the least. Gameplay-wise, Halo 5 was a drastic improvement from Halo 4 because 343 decided to just go all in and make the game very much like Call of Duty or Titanfall with full-on jetpacks, sprinting, and aiming down the sights. To some hardcore fans, this was absolutely terrible, and it spat in the face of everything the original Halo games had been, but to people who weren't fans of the originals, it was a great way to introduce them to the franchise. Whether or not making the gameplay like this was a good choice is up for debate, but there's no denying that it was better than the weird hybrid that Halo 4 was. And then, there's the story. The story of Halo 5 was not good. It's almost universally agreed upon by everyone that the incredible trailers were completely misleading about the kind of story fans were going to get. This might be bringing my own personal opinion into it, but the trailers really built this game up as being an epic battle between an older, worn-down veteran soldier who was slowly losing his mind, and a younger, more determined yet still naive soldier who wants to bring him to justice. What we got instead was a 20-second fight sequence.
Cortana's our concern now, sir.
Like hell she is.
Yes, Halo 5's story was very disappointing, and I might make a separate video one day on what it should have been like because thematically, this could have been an extremely emotional experience. However, that'll be for another time. To keep things short, let's just say that the story ended up leaving much to be desired, but it still left things off with some potential for the inevitable sequel and third game. The reintroduction of Cortana was unnecessary, but making her the villain was interesting, and the idea of this older and younger soldier learning to work together could make for an interesting dynamic. Maybe, just maybe, 343 Industries could bring this messy series to an incredible conclusion. And that brings us to Halo Infinite. Announced last year with an incredible trailer that made every fan lose their minds, Halo Infinite will be the final game in this trilogy, and it looks like Microsoft isn't messing around this time. Reportedly, Halo Infinite is the most expensive video game project ever, with $500 million being put into it. $500 million. That's $500 million that Microsoft has put just on this game and the new engine that they've developed just for it called the Slipspace engine. And if the trailer of this game is any indication, this engine is really something special. And I think it could be what makes Halo Infinite a revolutionary game, much in the way that Combat Evolved was. The trailer for Halo Infinite didn't show anything in terms of story or characters. It was all just one beautiful environment after the other, ending finally with Master Chief holding his helmet and then cutting to him driving a Warthog through an environment that is very reminiscent of the first Halo. The helmet itself also looked like the original Master Chief's helmet, rather than the redesign that we had seen in 4 and 5, and the renewed focus on just showing large, expansive environments convinces me that this game will be to the Xbox One what Combat Evolved was for the original Xbox. With all the money that's been spent on this game and its technology, I predict that Halo Infinite is going to give us the kind of world that Halo Combat Evolved wasn't able to as a result of the technological restrictions of its time. $500 million can't just be spent on pretty graphics. This engine will without a doubt allow for a living, breathing world the likes of which we may have never seen before. Perhaps the environments will be even more detailed with real-time day and night cycles along with dynamic weather that changes gameplay depending on whether it's thundering, raining, etc. Doing something like this would create a game so immersive that it may rival games like Red Dead 2 in terms of its qualities, and that is a truly exciting prospect not just for fans of the series. The fact that it's named Halo Infinite and not Halo 6 means that this game is going to be trying to be accessible to everyone, and it's not just going to try to alienate people by excessively focusing on continuing the story of 4 and 5. This, combined with the fact that there's going to be 4-player split-screen co-op available, makes me think that Halo Infinite is focusing on just being fun. Just fun. A game that you can sit down and play with your buddies to just have a great time. And that might not seem too revolutionary, but think back on Combat Evolved. Combat Evolved never did anything that any other FPS game hadn't, but it just took all the best elements of the games and polished them to a near perfect state. And having a return to that kind of gameplay would be incredible, because it would finally appease the fans who felt disappointed by Halo 4 and 5, and it would also bring in new fans to the series. As the true final game in the Halo franchise, I think that Infinite needs to go out with a bang, and I think Microsoft and 343 understands this as well. There's no other reason why they would spend all this time and money working on the game while also keeping so much of the game shrouded in secret. Ever since that trailer was released last year, they haven't shown us anything else. No gameplay, no second trailer, no nothing. We've simply had to sit here and speculate this entire time on what the game will be. But 1 month from now, in June 11th, we might finally be able to see more of the game at E3. Let's keep our fingers crossed that the game doesn't disappoint, because if it does, then there will be hell to pay for 343. The Halo fans have waited too long. The world has waited too long. Please, Microsoft, give us the true ending that we deserve. Give us that same kind of feeling that we got all those years ago when we booted up Halo Combat Evolved for the first time. Make that lightning strike twice, because if anyone can do it, it's you. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, hit the like button, and if you didn't, hit the dislike button. Just be honest, that's all I ask. Let me know what you guys think about Halo's legacy and why Infinite is so important, and if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. If you want to see more video game discussions or movie reviews, be sure to subscribe. Thank you once again for watching. This is Lil Brownie, out.